That's easily the nicest things that Hiller has ever said about me. Awesome to be here. Always love coming to this event for two reasons. Number one, it means we're close, to competing, which 2026 season right around the corner. I'll talk about that. Leave most of my time for you to ask me questions about the pitching staff and all of those things. You guys are very good at that. But always want to say thank you. Coming here, we're into the 5th year now, and had a good gut feeling about what this would be. Take the baseball, take the winning, take the championships out of it, but coming here and living here, and being a part of this community. And I don't know that any group across this community represents what Baton Rouge and what Louisiana is, this Rotary group per se. And very just thankful to be a part of it. Got half my neighborhood here, which is really cool. Very nervous because of that. So, don't sell me out if I'm driving too fast in a hurry to get home or anything like that, please. No, but in all sincerity, it's awesome to be in Louisiana and call this home. That's something that when I go to bed at night, I'm very thankful for and very grateful for. So, wanted to just kind of talk about our team and program and meeting this is kind of a start of the year, start of the season. Being here at this event for me personally, kind of try to give you an update on where we are going into the year, and doing that last year. Talked about the things that would be important for last year's team to be successful, and for all the great baseball that was played, and you heard all the accolades of all those great players, which is the reason we won the national championship again. Phenomenal human beings across the board. And when I think of Kate Anderson, you might think of strikeouts, or we won 18 of the 20 games that he pitched in on Friday, and that's against the best pitchers in the country. There's not a better human being on the planet. And I go to another thought, when I first came here, within 2 days of getting the job, you're trying to tie up the first year's team in 2022. And a friend of mine, Eric Borba, who's a high school coach in California, calls me and is like, hey, there's this guy right next to you. Okay, his name's Kate Anderson. He's only a sophomore. I'm going to tell him to call you right now, and you need to make sure you answer the phone. Thank God. I think sometimes in this current format that we get into, and you see it with football now and recruiting, it's hey, we want it right now for next year and get immediate impact. In baseball, until the last couple years, it was you're recruiting players 4 and 5 years out. Derek Curiel, who we all love, and the guy was just put on the planet to get a base hit when the game's on the line, and it matters the most. I remember watching video of him when he was in 7th grade, when we're all locked in, during COVID, and there was no baseball season during that point, and I'm trying to fill my day, and it's weird how things turn around. I wouldn't have been at my home office desk at 3 o'clock on March 17th if it wasn't for that going on, and turned over wait a minute, this is different, right here. And then Stephen Milam, walking into the cages at Arizona as this little 7th grader. He's a little taller now than he was then, but you'd heard about him, you know what I mean? You saw on the internet this little wizard of a defensive shortstop that reminded me of Ozzie Smith, who we all remember as the greatest defensive shortstop of all time. So it's pretty cool now to be on this side of it and thinking about how far back the story of last year's team, kind of went in terms of coming together and all of those types of things. But I remember being here last year and talking about the end of the 24 season. And that's a season where we did win 43 games. We were this close, to going back to the College World Series. And, I'm as proud of that season as any, in my entire career, because, we scuffled at the beginning of SEC play, really only because we were playing 4 of the 5 best teams in the country over a 5-week period. And that team had some growing to do with, losing all those players from the 23 season. And we were just a little bit short, and to me, maybe a little bit in talent or how to match up and all those types of things, but in just mental toughness. And some of that happens to you is you go through some of that adversity and you grow from some of that adversity. And that team did that, and then we were starting over almost completely new. We were only going to have 12 players coming back from 24 to 25, but it was the right players that used those experiences really, really well that set a platform for what we wanted to do last year. But we needed to grow up, is a term I use a lot with the players. And sometimes we all want to win every single game that we play and have zero adversity, but that's not the reality of this thing. And so how those guys grew, just developed a foundation of toughness for last year's team, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And then this thought of, being together, taking only 12 returning players, 10 high school players, 10 players from the transfer portal, a couple guys that had missed the season previously due to injury, and put that group together in that collection of talent and actually become a team takes a lot of work nowadays. I think a lot of coaches sometimes will make the mistake of they'll look at it and just go, hey, you should be on board with the team, or you should just be selfless. To me, like teaching a 19-year-old male how to do that is just as important as teach them how to field a ground ball, throw a strike, or get a base hit to the opposite field. And we were able to do that. And largely that's just due to the character of, I mentioned Kate Anderson, of bringing in Danny Dickinson, of bringing in Luis Hernandez, of Zach Cowan. We needed every ounce of every baseball contribution like those guys provided. But the behind the scenes stuff that you all don't see that they provided is like next level. You talk about winning the lottery and hitting the lottery. Yeah, we got some really nice baseball players out of the transfer portal last year, but we got phenomenal, human beings. I always love to tell this story about Luis. This was this year on Thanksgiving. The players will often text me, hey, happy Thanksgiving, coach, enjoy the day. We don't get much time off. That's a day off. And, I love texting them back, hey, have a great day with your family, this and that. But Luis Hernandez just texted me, I love you, coach. And I was like, if you know Luis Hernandez, that's kind of stuff. I was like, this is the greatest text message I've ever gotten in my entire life. So the togetherness of that team, and kind of wanted to talk about the journey. I really liked how we were moving last year through the fall. It was just a little bit on a different level and it wasn't oh my gosh, talent here, talent there. And we were a very talented team, no question about that. But we have this saying, to be who we want to be, we have to run a no drama program. Other than talking about how we play baseball or how our players represent us in the community, I don't want you to have to say anything else about them. I certainly don't want to talk to Hiller about any of them. So, all those things were going good, and just kind of moving into the season with just a very good feeling about where we were headed. Now, I never get too ahead of myself, and I apologize for being really boring when you all ask me about how our team's going to be. I mean, I like what we have, but we only play the best teams in the country, so I never get overly excited about what we have. But I was very optimistic, and we're going into the season, and I was standing out in the outfield one day before practice, and the pro guys are all out there working hard, the guys that had played for us, that were going out to spring training. And I was standing there talking to Dylan Cruz, and he's like, well, what do you think? I was like, we'll see. You know how it goes. He's like, I'll tell you what, coach, you'll know as soon as you lose a game what type of team you have. And then he goes, you remember when we lost our first game to Iowa, and then we came out and won 20-3 the next day against a really good team. I think Sam Houston State, who was an NCAA tournament team. He's like, that's when you'll know what you have. I was like, okay, yeah, you're exactly right, actually. So we win the first 5 games, and then we lost to Omaha, 5-4. And if you're not a baseball person, you don't understand how this type of stuff happens. But it was 48 degrees. The wind was blowing straight in. I made a poor pitching change, and you lose 5-4. And so we were getting ready to play a doubleheader the very next day, or excuse me, an hour and a half later. And so I remembered that conversation with Dylan, and I said, they all know him, they all respect him. I was like, I was talking to Dylan a couple weeks ago, and you know what he told me? He's like, you'll know what you have by how you respond to your first loss of the season. and kind of use that as something to like try to get the team going for the next game. And we won 12-0, played really good. Well, that wasn't just it though. We won 17 games in a row after that. And, you know, all kinds of games. You know, we went and played Dallas Baptist, who was a great team, top 20 team. We're in our regional, played great, like won 7-3. Then we went to the Frisco Classic and won an extra inning game against Kansas State, another NCAA tournament team. We were down 5-0 to Nebraska and came back and won 11-6. And then we were losing 7-1 because they were starting to feel pretty good about themselves. And then we came back and won 11-9, you know, against North Dakota State. And you might go, oh, that's North Dakota State. Well, they were in the NCAA tournament too. And so, like, against good teams, we were just kind of finding a way to win. And then we go to Texas, who actually ended up winning the regular season SEC championship, played great on Friday, went 8-3. And then we lost finally 11-7. And I quickly went back to and reminded them, hey, remember we talked about, you know, this is what, after you lose, this is what you just did. So that ought to give you a lot of confidence for where we were headed. And then we lost again the next day, but I learned a lot during that series about what we were going to need to do. And losing, and again, if you use it correctly, it can be really, really beneficial. You know, I try to talk to the players of like, you know, can we learn the lesson without it costing us anything? But it's really hard to get young people's attention when you just win, 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 win. But we used that series really, really well. And the same thing a couple weeks later, you know, we swept 2 SEC series in a row, then we got swept at Auburn. But we used that really, really well as far as what we needed to do. And then I often get asked, like, when did you know? And it was kind of in that next stretch. Like, we came home, we beat Alabama in really tight games and won 2 out of 3. We beat Tennessee 2 out of 3. You know, who was there at 1:17 in the morning on that day? That was so awesome. Holy cow! Like, all I remember is Jared hit the ball like 800 feet over the center field or over the center field fence, and I mean the place is going nuts. I was like, it's like 1:17 a.m. and it's still packed in here. And, man, there was this like rap music going on over the radio. I don't even know what it was saying, but I was like, this is the greatest song I've ever heard. And even though we weren't like quite firing on all cylinders, like they kind of kept finding ways to just be one step ahead of it and win. And then, you know, I love talking about the NCAA tournament. Like that's the pinnacle, like for me. And we'll really want our team. We got to get there first, which is a lot harder than people think that it is. But once you're there, like that's the pinnacle. And I mentioned this at the banquet. If you were at the banquet the other night, like. We played the 2 best games of the season, you know, against Little Rock and Dallas Baptist, win 7-0, 12-0, and everybody on the outside is probably, and maybe even some of our players, like this regional thing, this is a wrap. Like we're a runaway freight train. Well, then this team, Little Rock, they beat the tar out of us. Like, I mean, I think they would have beat the Yankees that night. And then I woke up the next morning and it was kind of different in my gut. And I had coached in 2 national championship games, but I woke up that morning like feeling more pressure to win a baseball game than I ever have in my entire career. And it didn't have anything to do with meeting expectations here or all of you don't think we should lose to somebody like Little Rock. It was like, man, I got this group of guys that I was just talking about their character. Like, there's no way this season is not ending in the College World Series. And so I'm always thinking about, what do I say to them? You know, how do I inspire them or to be their best? And then it was like, none of that, because they're already feeling enough pressure tonight. If I'm feeling this, you know, at 20 years old, they're definitely feeling it. So we just went in the room and I wrote on the board. I wrote out the lineup. I wrote out the pitching plan, and I wrote even the guys that weren't in the game, like all 27 players, like this is your job tonight to play. If we do this tonight, then the winning will take care of itself. And next thing you know, we're losing 5-1, so it's a great plan, you know. And but if you were there that night, like it still felt like we were winning in the stadium, you know, and it definitely felt that way in the dugout. Like you guys as fans, our players, they just weren't going to lose the game. You know, came back and won, and then really played great from that point forward. We won 8 straight to win the national championship, and I was really proud of them in Omaha. There was like a thing for every game, and you know, before we left, I talked about, you know, when you show up there, nobody was returning to the College World Series last year, you know, including us. We went in 23, we didn't go in 24. Nobody was returning it was all new teams. And so it's like, hey, there's 8 teams that are going to this thing. all right? 5 of them, they've won the championship. Like, they're just happy to be there. Okay, there's 3 teams that are going. One of them's us, one of them's Arkansas, who we were playing in the first game, most talented team in the country last year. And the other team doesn't even know who they are yet. They're just gonna be the team that comes out the other side of the bracket. So we need to like be super aggressive in this thing. Like, I'm talking about a big, physical, nasty offensive line that just like knocks people off the ball. And I was like, watch what happens. And it was actually really cool that this actually happened. I go, watch what happens when we score 3 runs in the second inning. Watch how much panic goes into the other side of the field. And we have the best pitcher in the country pitching for us. So a panicked hitting plan against that dude in that ballpark, we're gonna win. I think I said we're gonna win like 5-1. We won 4-1. And then the next game, we got rain and lightning delays and all that. Nobody told me about all the lightning out here. And I'm really glad they didn't, because I don't know if I would have actually come out here. But we get this lightning delay, and we're playing UCLA, and it is 10 in the morning. And then I was just thinking about it, like, hey, if I told you guys in August, like, you have to wake up early, but if it's a 10 a.m. game, we're in the College World Series with 1 win to get us to the national semifinals, would you worried about playing early or being tired or this and that? They're like, no. It's like, energy is going to decide this game. And then 3 up, 3 down, and then bam, 2 runs on the board. Like, it was awesome. Now, if you're in Omaha, some of you stayed and slept in, because the stadium was very empty that morning. So shame on you. We got to work on your alarm clocks. And then, really just finishing it out, with, great wins against Arkansas, the best game I've ever been a part of. We got some good fortune there in the 9th inning, and, we had the Tommy White homer in 23, and then we had the Luis's double, and then Jarrett's hit to walk it off. I'm literally standing there on that field. I was like, man, nobody gets a night like this in their entire life, and we've had 2 in the last 3 years. Like, that was amazing. And then in the finals, thank you for showing up, like standing on the foul line and just seeing all that purple. Like, I can't even like express like what that means, like, inside. It's like, we're winning today, and then Coach Bertman shows up in the locker room and it is like, hey, after the game, I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna give you a hug, and we're gonna celebrate. I was like, Coach, you realize that team we just beat 1-0, they hadn't lost for like 2.5 months, so we still actually have to win the game today. I'm like, oh God, if we lose tonight, I'm gonna make this guy stay an extra night. And jeez, thank God we got it done that night. And but I that's a team, like, not just because of the accomplishment, but the pieces, the people you should be really proud of. Because when I talk about living here, it's because of people, and they represent, like all of us, the right way. So I got 5 minutes left. Great. All right, I'll go quick. This year, we're moving past last year. Like, it's good for me to talk about it. They're not talking about it. Like, our thought process is being all in on 2026, and really, really excited about 2026. And done a lot of work to focus on when teams get to a point like that we're at as a program, which there's not a lot of experience, because not many people actually get to this point where you've won a couple championships in a 3-year period. But like, the things that we need to do to continue our success, I can tell you these players are very, very committed to, and we're really excited about it. So instead of me continuing to talk about it, I'll let you ask the questions that you want to ask, and I may or may not answer them.
Use the mic. Please use the mic.
Okay.
Use the mic.
Coach, I think I speak for just about everybody in the room. We admire you as much as a coach as for your role model for these young men. Who are your mentors?
Who are my mentors? I think if I've been good at like one thing in my life is like paying attention to the best people at what they do. And had a really good mentor in my dad. He was an excellent high school level, but football and track coach. I didn't realize it, but I was going to a coach's clinic every day when I woke up in the morning at 6:15. And as far as work ethic, character, like high standard, and I never really understood like kind of how he was when you're a young kid, and then it's really funny to watch him like high-fiving you guys in the stands and being like a cheerleader. I was like, where was this dude when I was 14 years old? But he's definitely number one. My college coach was a great role model of mine. And then like I said, I was been paying attention for a long time. So, the most nervous I've ever been here as a coach is the first time I talked to Coach Bertman on the phone. I called him and was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. And he's been amazing to be with here.
Coach, do you have an over-under of games you're going to play after 1 o'clock in the morning this year?
Hey man, I'm all for the good weather and all of that type of stuff, but I think I said this before, I would rather it take 5 hours and win than be over in 2 hours and lose. So if it has to happen at 1 a.m., as long as we win, I'm good.
Coach, quick question. Appreciate your comments about the value. It's difficult, particularly those of us in the room that can remember Coach Burton first showing up here. He addressed the fact that football school like LSU historically had a tough time understanding that sometimes a loss could be very beneficial to the development of a team that leads towards the championship. Well, having said that, recognize this is about our LSU Tigers here in Baton Rouge. Could you comment on the remarkable season that LSU Shreveport had, going undefeated, and how remarkable that is at any level of baseball?
Yeah, mind blowing. Like to go 59-0 in baseball, like that's like going to the moon 17 days in a row or something like that. It was awesome, and we got to go to the White House for winning the national championship this time, which it wasn't as cool as actually winning the championship that day on the field, but it was like the next coolest day of my life. I mean, and they got to go with us, which was phenomenal. Coach Brad there does a terrific job, super intense guy, great recruiter. I mean, that's the same level I started my coaching career at. So, and people don't believe me, but winning that Point Loma, at that level was just as important to me then as winning at LSU is now, and that it's remarkable. And I'll be probably the first when they finally do lose a game. I'll be the first one to do a pickup and go like, hey, make sure you realize what you had accomplished, because that's remarkable.
Coach, first of all, I want to thank you again for the 5 minutes you spent with my daughter at one time. She really appreciated it. Who's the next Ison?
Who is the next Ianson? Yeah, that dude, you talk about, the guys like to throw around the word dog. Like, that dude was, oh my goodness, he's one of the best pitchers I've ever coached in my life. Better human being, and sometimes when you know, within like 3 minutes of having him on the phone, actually once he was in the transfer portal, I was like, we have to have this player. And of course, he took a visit to LSU one day, Texas the next, and Tennessee the next. That was a very long 48 hours in the Johnson house of how that deal was going to go. But I don't want any of our players this year to try to be anybody from last year. Like, I think that's really, really important. To me, comparing yourself to another player, coach, that like takes away the joy of competing. But I will tell you, I think we have some guys ready to take another step in their development. Obviously, Kason Evans was a huge part of last year. He's obviously probably going to move to the starting rotation, and I think he's poised to take another jump and be like a contributor like Anthony. William Schmidt, he went 7-0 last year as a freshman. And because he had so much expectation, because, he turned down some money, decided he just wanted to come play college baseball. That wasn't maybe good enough for some of you. That's a great freshman year, in college baseball. He's ready to take another step forward. We have a transfer from the University of Kansas named Cooper Moore, who's, undersized right-hander but super competitive, just fills up the strike zone. There's a number of candidates that are going to take a nice step forward this year.
We conclude right now. Okay.
We're done.
Okay.
Go Tigers.